All right, guys, you're going to have plenty of time today to just kind of kick back and talk and do whatever. Obviously, today is for a reason. I'm trying to give you guys an opportunity to get caught up. The majority of things that we've done this 6 weeks are closing at midnight tonight. So, really short of the notebook. If you're missing anything, this is your last day to get that stuff in. We are going to review a little bit of stuff for the Industrial Revolution, but the bulk of class you will have to kind of use as productively as you can. So that's kind of what's going on. Should be a pretty easy day. We'll go over this stuff here in just a second. Just a couple other announcements. We are going to review a little bit on industrialization, mainly because we do have the essay coming up on Monday. It is a test grade. You're going to have 50 minutes to do it. You need to get it done in class. I think given what I'm going to go over and given the fact that you're going to have access to this while you do the essay, there's no reason you should not all do extremely well. I'm trying to make this a relatively easy test grade, but also just strengthen our writing skills. So take advantage of it, get it done, do it on time. Even if you didn't get a single point, if I saw some effort, you saw the rubric yesterday, you get 65, even if you don't get any points. But given, the information that's going to be available to you, you should do much better than that. So take advantage of it. Hopefully that'll kind of help you out the remainder of the 6 weeks. Only other announcement, just a reminder, AP Classroom, that extra credit quiz is on there, but it is going to close this Sunday at 11:45 p.m. So again, if you are not doing great right now, or you think you may need that help down the line, that is certainly something that I would highly encourage you to do. So kind of today, as far as, stuff that we're going to cover, I'm going to very briefly go over this slide. You've seen this before. This was at the end of the PowerPoint that we did last week. But I will tell you, within this slide, there's all sorts of things. Almost everything on this slide, you could find a way to integrate into your essay on Monday. So pay attention to it. You don't necessarily got to take notes or anything because we took these notes already. This is just a summary of that big, long PowerPoint in general. Internet was messed up earlier, but I am going to post just this slide under today's date. That way it's easier to find. And that way, like I said, you can pull that up and hopefully use it during your essay on Monday. Once this is done, just to kind of hammer it home a little bit more, we are going to watch the crash course over industrialization. But once that's done, we're done for the day. Whatever time is left, it's yours to do what you need to do. But like I said, if you're missing stuff, this is your last opportunity in class to get that stuff done. So just kind of keep that in mind. All right, Industrial Revolution, 1750 to 1900. Here we go. Here's some of the causes, not everything, but some of the things that you should know. Industrial Revolution begins in Great Britain, mainly due to their abundance of coal, iron, labor, rivers, and ports for trade. It then spread to other parts, mainly of Western Europe. It spread to the United States, a few other places, but in the early days, that's pretty much it. Europeans had a little bit of advantage over other people because they did have those overseas colonies. Not all Europeans, but the places that did become industrialized, by and large, did. Great Britain, for example, had colonies overseas that could provide raw materials. Those colonies also could serve as trade partners. As time progressed, leading into the 1700s, less farmers were needed due to advancements in agriculture. Some political movements, such as the enclosure movement, made agriculture less of an option for some people to make a living off of. You also had, because agriculture was not as available for people, more and more people already moving into the cities. After the Columbian Exchange, you've got a population increase. Pretty drastic one, meaning you need more of everything. You need to be able to produce more food, hence some of the agricultural innovations. You need more clothes. You need more products. You had already had the scientific revolution earlier, which kind of started a trend towards more technical skills, more scientific knowledge, more technological ability, and the rest is just kind of history. The first sort of occupation that gets modernized, industrialized, whatever you want to say, would be the textile industry. One good important invention you might be able to bring up, the spinning jenny in 1764. Later on, you get the steam engine, 1769, to help power some of the machinery, eventually power new modes of transportation as well, such as trains and steamboats. Again, Everything just comes together at the right time. The effects are massive. Small-scale home production of goods, aka cottage industries, if you want to be technical, largely shifts to mass production of goods in large factories using assembly lines. There is a drastic growth in the size and numbers of cities. If you want to use some vocab there, urbanization is what you'd want to use. And it's basically because people were leaving the farms, they were leaving the rural areas, they were by and large moving to the cities. Cities grew really fast. And as a result, we're overcrowded. We're kind of disgusting. We talked about a lot of the unsanitary conditions. We talked about the poor housing, the tenements. We talked about all of that. That resulted in the spread of a lot of diseases. You do see spikes in tuberculosis, typhus, cholera, which largely comes about because people drink tainted water, you know. In a lot of these cities, the sewer systems are so poor, if they had any, that oftentimes the sewage would kind of seep into the water supply. And that obviously is going to make people sick. Coupled with the fact that medical knowledge was fairly limited at the time. In the early days, doctors still thought that people got sick, that germs spread. Didn't know much about germs, but that diseases spread via like bad smells. That, yeah, it just, you know, it was a really bad situation for everyone. Now, eventually things do improve. You get your improvements in communication and medicine and technology as a whole. We did give some specific examples of inventions and inventors and scientists and people that accomplished a lot during this time period. If you could bring up some of those people and some of the things they did, that's exactly the sort of stuff that may serve as evidence in your essay. But things do improve. Just know that it takes a while. There's a wider variety of goods and services and eventually types of jobs because, again, the nature of everything changes. With the wider availability of goods and the fact that it's cheaper to produce most things, you do see a decrease in the price of manufactured goods, meaning people are buying more, they're owning more. You do have an incredible growth in capitalism, which was kind of the de facto economic philosophy in these industrialized nations. You do see a rise in the middle class, kind of the creation of the modern middle class we have today. But some people did not like the inequality created by capitalism. Under that system, there's always going to be gaps between rich and poor. And you see competing ideologies form to varying degrees of success. There's definitely some problems here. But you see socialism, especially communism, doesn't work very well. You do see them develop as responses or alternatives to capitalism. Lots of pollution. This is when we really start doing that to a large degree. Burning coal, using oil, those carbon emissions, they create air pollution, water pollution. We really start messing up our environment at this point in history more than we ever had in the past, kind of getting us to where we are today. Working conditions early on were really rough in the factories and the mines. They had child labor. They had very few safety regulations. There were little protection for employees. And that does eventually lead to a variety of social and political reforms that do bring about some positive change. But again, it takes a long time to get there. The creation of labor unions does help with working conditions as you see laborers get together and kind of jointly demand changes. One thing that we didn't really get into yet, but we're going to get into a lot next week, is the continued growth of overseas European empires. These Western European nations, they're industrialized. And you could even lump the United States into this process. You could lump Japan into this process because they become industrialized eventually as well. They start empire building. They start taking over territories overseas in Africa, in Asia, in the Pacific, informally in some others, because of the need for raw materials, because of a need to increase areas where they can sell their products, because of the need for cheap labor in certain areas. And this whole brand new wave of empire building and colonization, it's a big thing that goes on in the 1800s. It's one of the things that leads to World War I. And lastly, and there's other stuff, but I tried to pick out the high notes, you do see wave upon wave of global migration. people from Europe, people from Asia coming to places like the United States for opportunities. Some, find great success. Others, find some pretty bad conditions. But either way, with railroads and steamships and just the ability to move further and faster than before, you do see a lot of people taking advantage of that. And probably, though, the biggest thing that if we look globally and just kind of with us as a human species, the population starts to boom with the onset of industrialization. We looked at that chart at the end of the PowerPoint last week. For most of human history, the global population is hovering, somewhere around 250 million, maybe a little bit more, maybe up to 500 million. But starting in the 1700s and moving forward, we're going into the billions. And that's just over the last 300 years. It's astonishing that for all of human history, we're kind of pretty much at the same level globally. Then about 300 years ago, it starts to skyrocket. And that's something that we're still dealing with to this day. 7 point however many billion people in the world today. That's pretty astonishing. So again, this is there. I'm about to update Canvas. It will be there under today's date. But this is something certainly that I would give a gander before or during the writing of your essay. We're now going to watch a little crash course. It's a good review, if nothing else. It's only 10 minutes. Once that time is up, the rest of the period is yours to get caught up. So that means for this point, put your phones up, put everything up. Just pay attention. It won't kill you, and who knows? You might kind of get your memory jogged. It's stuff that hopefully you could include in your essay next week. So, here we go. Crash course, Industrial Revolution.
Hi, I'm John Green. This is Crash Course World History, and today we're going to discuss a series of events that made it possible for you to watch Crash Course, and also made this studio possible, and made the warehouse containing the studio possible.